Now, in the last few hours, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been speaking. He said Russia is now trying to erase his country's heritage by targeting sites like the Babi Yar Holocaust Memorial in Kyiv.
This is beyond humanity. Such missile strike means that, for many Russians, our Kyiv is absolute foreign. They know nothing about our capital, about our history. They have orders to erase our history, our country, and all of us. Russian mothers are losing their children in an absolute foreign country for them. Think about this number: almost 6,000 Russian soldiers were killed. What will be next if even Babi Yar is hit? What other military objects, NATO bases are threatening Russia? Sophie's Cathedral, Lavra, Andrew's Church? Whatever they dream about. Damn them.
Well, for the very latest from Ukraine, let's cross live and speak to Arise Special Correspondent Karl Bostic, who joins us over the phone from the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Good to talk with you, Karl. Let's start with Kherson. We're getting conflicting reports about the situation there in the south. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry claims to be still in control of the city, but I'm reading here that the Russians and various other reports are suggesting that the Russians, have taken control of that port city. What can you tell us?
Well, it's a little bit of both, Charles. Good evening, because yes, it's true. Russian tanks are now inside the city of Kherson. It's a city of 300,000. It's a port city. They're inside the city of Kherson, but the municipal building is still up and running, believe it or not, Charles. But the mayor is saying that we are still waiting for a miracle. By miracle, he means they need ammunition. It's a city that's right now running out of water, running out of electricity, and there's no food at all. And this is really kind of phase 2 of what we're seeing with Russia's invasion into Ukraine after now 7 days. It's a phase that's now more brutal, Charles, more tactless, no tactics being used, and it's really unrestricted warfare. And that's what we're seeing played out in Kherson and Kharkiv, and to another extent, Kyiv as well, Charles. And the consequence of this kind of a phase is that it's going to lead to more civilian casualties and bloodier battles. What remains to be seen is that, Kherson could really fall overnight or by tomorrow. And it would be the first significant victory after a week for the Russians who've been able to capture the city. But right now, the city's paralyzed.
So Karl, Kherson apparently falling imminently. You talked a little bit about Kharkiv there. Just tell us a bit more about what's going on. Intense fighting apparently around that city.
Well, it's amazing, Charles, because what happened was you talked about Russian troops landing last night about 3 o'clock in the morning, more missiles striking a police academy and also university building. It was one of Kharkiv's historical universities going back to 1800. One of its buildings heavily damaged, if not destroyed. One resident who fled Kharkiv saying that, I don't recognize my city, our city is in ruins. And this is a very historical city, even though it's a Russian-speaking city. So right there, this is, as President Zelensky was saying, they're trying to erase our history by destroying this kind of city, because now they're not using precision weapons. They're using multiple rocket launches, which launch cluster bombs, bomblets, which is against international treaties. So that's what we're seeing right there. We're seeing gruesome scenes of blown out cars and buildings and bodies, charred bodies being pulled out as well. And that's a situation in Kharkiv because right now it's under siege. There's no heating, no electricity, no water. People basically are living in bomb shelters, Charles. And what's really more excruciating is that while people are still trying to flee the city, many are choosing to stay because they don't want to leave their home because they're caring for the elderly people who are too weak to leave that city.
And Karl, meanwhile, people in the capital, Kyiv, are nervously watching that 60-kilometer-long convoy of Russian armored vehicles that's steadily advancing towards the city. I mean, any sense at all of what the Russians are planning to do with that?
Well, Charles, you asked a very loaded question because some would suggest that even the Russians aren't sure what they want to do. Do they want to encircle the city and capture it, or do they want to maybe entice Ukraine to confront them before they enter the city, because it's easier to engage with fighting Ukrainian troops outside of Kyiv before they enter Kyiv, because then you would have urban warfare. But the other side is this, Charles. That convoy is now stalled. And why is it stalled, Charles? Because they're perhaps short of fuel, they're short of food, and morale is also reportedly very low. We're now seeing reports that they run out of food, in part because they didn't plan for it to be on the road for 5, 6, or 7 days. In fact, in the food that was issued because of issues of corruption, they're short of food. They're using those instant meals ready-to-eat packages, some of which are several years old. And so there are reports of them actually, stopping by villages and looting homes to get food for the soldiers. There are many young conscripts in this convoy in the army, because 80% of combat troops are now in Ukraine. A lot of the young conscripts, they didn't know that this was their mission to go into Ukraine. So morale is very, very low in that sense as well. And they also don't have fuel because fuel trucks have been targeted by Ukrainians. So they're kind of also stalled and stuck right now.
And Karl, briefly, in continuing reference to that convoy, I mean, you'd think it's almost a sitting duck for the Ukrainian Air Force, but they don't seem to have materialized. I mean, does Ukraine not have the resources to be able to deploy and attack that convoy?
You partly just answered the question right there, Charles. They have next to no Air Force, only about 172 combat aircraft. That's compared to Russia's 1,000-plus combat aircraft. And by engaging with them from the air, they could perhaps be enticing Russia to really send out its heavy aircraft to start just, wreaking devastation on Kyiv itself. So that's why it's a very tense standoff, if you will, and that's why no one knows what are the true intentions behind this convoy, which could reach Kyiv really in a matter of days, but it's already 7 days.
And Karl, we got these pictures earlier from you of foreign students leaving Kharkiv. I mean, as the fighting clearly grinds into a bloody new place, I mean, everyone's bracing for a refugee crisis, millions expected to head towards Europe, and Lviv, where you are, the first port of call for many. How much of a crisis is it creating there?
That's right, Charles. I mean, those pictures you were talking about, those pictures coming out of Kharkiv, what you have on a daily basis, people are exchanging on social media, the Telegram channel, pictures, various pictures of the brutalities and hardships they're encountering, but also foreign students. And Nigerians, Charles, make up the biggest contingent of foreign students in Ukraine. There are as many as 20,000 Indian students in Ukraine. About 12,000 have been evacuated, but Nigerians make up 20% of them. They attend the professional schools like medical schools, engineering schools, many of them out of Kharkiv. So those are the pictures you saw right there because they're trying to evacuate them. But the problem is right now, Lviv has become now, instead of a tourist hub, it's become a hub for the displaced. I mean, already, for example, now more than 870,000 people have fled out of Ukraine. That's nearly 1 million after only 7 days. And 438,000 through into Poland, and that's through Lviv. So as a result, you're seeing tent cities and museums and schools being used to house people, Charles. And the train station itself, it's created a dual crisis, not only humanitarian, but also health, because now they're worried about the spread, not just of COVID, Charles, but also of polio and tuberculosis because of those close conditions. And the worry is that these refugees may also be, spreading this by going into other countries such as, Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia.
And Karl, you know a lot about Ukraine. I mean, you've traveled around the country over the years and you actually lived there for a while. What is it that has struck you the most about the country and about this conflict this time that you're there?
Well, I'll tell you something, Charles. You're right, because I first came here when I was a student and lived here for the last year of communism, and then covered the Maidan uprising and the Crimea annexation. In short, their sense of Ukrainians' identity has intensified because of this. I was asking people, are you afraid? And the answer was no, absolutely not. We are mad and we are angry. And then, we also asked about, how they felt about, fighting the Russians. And they were saying, this is not a new war. we've always been oppressed by the Russians. So they feel like more strongly about this than ever. And they want to fight. And quite frankly, Russians underestimated the resolve of the Ukrainians. In fact, they saw the pictures coming out of Afghanistan last August, how Kabul just collapsed and crumbled because of low morale. But that's not the case with Ukraine. And that's why they realize they may have miscalculated, because now they don't have, they can go. This could go on for another month, Charles, if not months. That's the latest assessment coming from Washington.
Karl, thank you very much indeed. Our Special Correspondent Karl Bostic on the line there from the Ukrainian city of Lviv.